wants to make a 30-minute quilt top. 30 minutes. So I got it down to 30 minutes. Can you believe it? So this quilt top is super easy to make. It's wonderful for a beginner, somebody who's never even made a quilt before, and it's wonderful also for an advanced quilter because it's a quick, easy project, especially when you lose your sojo and you just want to get it back and you want to make something and be creative. Our finished quilt top will measure around 40 inches by 45 inches, so it's not super huge, but it's the perfect lap size quilt. For this quilt top, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric, each measuring 3/4 of a yard or 27 inches. And it works best if you have contrasting fabric like these. I posted a poll about a week ago asking viewers what fabrics they'd like to see in the next tutorial, and overwhelmingly people said that they wanted to see a winter quilt, so that's what I did. So let's get started making a 30-minute quilt top. Okay, so I have my 2 pieces of fabric. I have a light blue with snowflakes on it and a darker blue or a medium blue. So what I'm going to do is start with one of my fabrics, and I pressed it really, really well, making sure that my selvages, and I know I keep getting complaints because I'm pronouncing it wrong. I don't know, maybe it's my Pennsylvania accent, but my selvages, whatever, are lined up here, and then I folded it in half again so they're lined up with the fold. Now you don't have to be absolutely perfect with this, trust me, it will not matter, but it is good to have some good practices in there. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to cut this strip into random cuts. Now, I'm going to give you the cuts that I used, but seriously, you can use whatever you want. Just make sure that they are random because that kind of helps with the whole overall look of this and makes your life a little bit easier. So I'm going to line it up. Notice that my mat is turned over because I want to use my ruler and not the mat. And I'm going to line this up here on the fold. And I'm going to cut and even up this edge. And it looks pretty good, so I'm going to take it over a little bit further. Make sure it's lined up here, everything's straight, and I'm just going to line up that edge and discard that. Now I'm going to start with my smallest piece. That's the way I like to do it. My first piece I'm going to cut is 2.5 inches, and I'm going to line it up on that edge, just like that. Make sure everything's straight, and cut. I'm going to move this out of the way. I could leave this here and just add to it, but I'm going to move it out of the way for this video so you can see what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm going to turn this around. So my next cut from this piece is 4.5 inches. I'm going to line it up and cut. Next one is 5.5. Six inches. And my final one is 8 inches. And the reason I cut the smallest one first is because see how this edge here, hopefully you can see that. Let me lift it up. This edge here is not even, okay? So if I can't get my 8 inches out, it's okay. I'll just make it smaller. It's not a big deal. But I can. So in fact, I can even make it a little bit bigger. But I'm not going to do that for this tutorial. I would probably in real life because I like to use up the fabric and I don't like to have scraps, but I also want it to be good and clear for everybody making this quilt. All right, so I'm going to do 8 inches and cut it. So here are my light strips ready to go. I'm going to set them aside and I'm going to cut my dark blue. Okay, same thing. I have it all lined up with the selvages on that side. Please don't come at me. I think it's my accent and I just can't seem to make that sound. All right, and then I'm going to cut these a little bit different sizes because I want that randomness of the size of fabrics. So for this one, I'm going to even up my edge, just like I did before. And my first cut I'm going to make is 3 inches. Next one is 4.5, then 5, 6.5. Let me slide my fabric over so you can see it's in the camera frame here. And 7.5. And you know what? I might not get that 7.5. That is okay. But oh, I think I am going to just make it. Make sure I get all the pieces, which I think I did. Yes. Okay, so all our pieces are already cut for this quilt, and they're right here. Okay, So the next thing you're going to do is randomly put these pieces together. So I don't want necessarily two little ones together unless I want that look, but I'm going to put him on the bottom, that little guy, and then I'm going to put these two together, these two together. Okay, so you can see I have very random pieces together. Like that. And next I'm going to sew these sets together. So I'm going to open this up. Let me move these out of the way. So I'm just lining these up, right sides together along one edge, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. Now notice here, the ends do not line up. That's okay, don't worry about that. We'll trim it all up when we're done. We're gonna do that for all of these. Okay, so I have all my pieces clipped together here at the top. All the sets are here ready to go, and I'm going to sew these using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you don't have to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, it's super forgiving. If you are more comfortable with a bigger seam allowance, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure it's consistent because you want it to be straight. Okay, I'm finishing up my last piece. Again, don't worry if these don't line up. Don't worry about it. So now I have 5 sets. And you can see them here. I just chain pieced them all together. What I'm going to do next is cut them apart, and I'm going to press them to set the seam. So I'm going to press right on that seam. I'm going to open them and press seams to the darker side. Now you can press them open if you want. Again, that does not matter. So I'm going to do that and I will show you our next step. Okay, I have all of my strips nice and pressed to the one side. They're all here, and I bet you can guess what we're going to do next. We're going to take 2 of the strips, put them together, right sides together, making sure our light is meeting our dark. Flip this around here, it's just like that. So the light and dark are together, and we're going to stitch down that side and do that for 2 of them. You're going to have 1 extra because you have 5 sets. You're just going to sew that to the bottom of one of them and keep going until you have a 30-minute quilt top. Now for this last unit where I have 2, let's hold it up here so you can see, 2 5 strip units together, I do pin this one. And the reason I do that is because of the weight of each of these strips. I feel like it's it could shift pretty easily. So I will go ahead and pin these 2 together. Again, right sides together, dark with light, and then sew it after I pin it. Okay, so the quilt top is done. All we have to do is trim up these funky edges that are very uneven. And all I'm going to do is fold this in half because I know that my top and bottom are straight. I cut them straight. So I'm just going to fold them in half as best as possible, matching them up. Like that. And if you want to, you can press the bottom seam, but you don't have to. Okay, I messed up. I don't know if I didn't hit record or what happened, but I lost the footage on the next step. So I'm just gonna kind of have to show you how I did it. Okay, so we're gonna pretend these edges are on here, okay, if you don't mind. Just work with me for a minute. So I'm gonna take a nice big ruler. So I wanted to make sure everything was straight, so I lined everything up with this ruler, and I made sure that the markings on the ruler are straight on these lines, on these seams that I sewed when I sewed the strips together. And then I just took my rotary cutter and cut off this part, all the pieces. And that made sure everything was nice and straight and even. And then I did it to the other side, which you can see. Here are the pieces from the other side. So I'm so sorry that I missed this for recording purposes, but that's how you do it. You can lay it completely flat if you want to and cut it that way, but I found this is just as easy, just folding it in half. You can even fold it again and cut however you want to do it, but you will get nice straight edges by doing it that way. Here's the final quilt behind me. I'll put an inside picture here too. You can see that I tried to distribute the different stripes, but I did do it randomly. I love the way it turned out. I think that these spaces would be perfect for some embroidery or some free motion quilting, which is probably what I'm going to use it for. I'm trying to learn how to free motion quilt, and I'll show you another quilt I did when I was preparing for this, which is this quilt. And this is a Christmas quilt, and I did practice my free motion quilting on it, which you can see here. It's not very good, but I'm getting there, and I haven't done it in years, and it's good to get back into the practice. So these are perfect quilts for that. I also finished this one a little differently. I used the flannel sheet on the back, and it's so cuddly and cozy. I just love it. I can't wait to snuggle with it this Christmas. I also made this baby quilt, and I made it a little smaller, but you can see I did some quilting in it. This one has been washed. It's all crinkly and wonderful. I also put double knit gauze on the back, and this was inspired by Tracy from the sewing channel. She does this. It is so soft. I've never worked with it before, and it was a lot of fun to use. For both this one and the Christmas one, I just did a turn, an envelope turn, but you could easily add borders to this. You could use a traditional binding, whatever you'd like to do. You can even make it bigger by cutting more strips and sewing the strips together. Long ways, salvage, salvage, salvage to salvage. Give it a try. It's a lot of fun. I loved making this. I'm definitely going to make more. It'd be great for gifts, for craft fairs, or something cozy that you can have for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please give me that thumbs up, and I'll see you soon. Have a great day. Bye.